Look around the room and you'll notice that there are not a lot of diversity officers, there are not a lot of ADA coordinators here today, and there's a reason for that. Our office, along with other state agencies, is a member of the Disability Employment Advocacy Group, which is made up of nonprofit entities, state governments, advocates that are out there. And one of their asks of them was for us as a state to better figure out opportunities for consumers of Mass Rehabilitation Commission and Mass Commission for the Blind. And in that vein, I had held a round table about a month and a half ago, and we had figured out that we honestly believe that diversity officers, ADA coordinators, are doing a good job of bringing qualified applicants with disabilities to the hiring managers, but ultimately we're not necessarily seeing the results we'd like to see of those qualified individuals being hired. And that is why we are holding this for hiring managers, mostly because we want to demystify the process, mostly because we want to make clear and make sure that you folks ultimately know that you can reach out to us, you can reach out to the folks at MRC and MCB for assistance, for internships, for hiring, for the questions that you have. And that's generally what we're here today to talk about. Hopefully you'll walk away here today having a better understanding of the application process, of what consumers are available, and generally what are the obligations under the Americans with Disabilities Act for qualified. Massachusetts Office on Disability set out in state law to bring about the full and equal participation of persons with disabilities in all aspects of life. One of the relevant areas as to why we're here today and why we're on that employment advocacy group is that we are the ADA coordinating agency for the executive branch of state government. So in that we provide advice, technical assistance, trainings. We serve on various boards and commissions, one of them being the employment advocacy group, which led to the roundtable, which led to us meeting here today and providing this resource for you folks as hiring managers, recruiters, and HR personnel. Real quick, I just want to touch on the civil rights definition for disability. We often recognize that there are a lot of definitions for disability out there. There's a definition for disability relative to the receipt of SSDI benefits, and that really focuses on one's ability to perform jobs that are available in the public relative to their specific limitations and disability. There's another definition, for example, for disability on how you can receive a handicap placard, and that really focuses on someone's ability to ambulate and move. What we're talking about today is we're talking about the civil rights definition for disability. That is the widest and broadest legal definition for disability. And what it states is that a disability is a physical or mental impairment that substantially limits one or more major life activities. Notice we don't say disability, we focus on physical or mental impairment. Oftentimes I get a lot of questions from hiring managers, HR personnel. Well, we've received medical documentation, but it doesn't list a specific disorder, disease, or disability. That's okay. That's okay. We often also get questions about substantial limits, and that doesn't mean completely incapacitated. It means that you're limited as compared to someone in the average or the general public. Okay? So for a great example, that would be if I need to utilize the facilities more frequently than someone else because of a disability, I may receive protection and may be eligible for reasonable accommodation in the employment realm. I'm going to move on here. There are two other prongs of disability, having a record of such an impairment or being regarded as having such an impairment. I'm going to pass over those two, and I'm going to really focus today on those limitations. So one of the things we talked about is major life activities. As you can see here, this is a non-exhaustive list of sitting, working, and learning. These are all things that are major life activities. In around 2010, the ADA definition expanded to also include major bodily functions. So as I mentioned in my example, if you're limited in the ability for digestive limitations, things of that nature, those things may not be obvious to the eye, but you may be eligible for civil rights protection under the disability definition. Again, non-exhaustive list. The ADA definition here, I said, the back two prongs are having a record of such an impairment. So a great example of that would be if I have cancer, for example, and someone passes up on me for a promotion because of that belief that I may not, for example, be in a position that I may be here for a few years from now. So that would be a good example of disability discrimination. Again, I wasn't going to mention it, but I'll also go into regard it as a great example of that would be someone who's not necessarily limited in any major life activity, but for example, let's say there's a rumor around the office that an individual has ADD, but they don't actually have it, right? They're not substantially limited in any major life activity or bodily function, but the reality is that in that scenario, the employer is treating them that way, and therefore they would receive protection under the ADA. The last piece I'm going to talk about is a slight tweak to this civil rights definition in the employment context, right? And that says that a qualified individual with a disability is an individual with a disability who's able to perform the essential functions of the job with or without reasonable accommodation, right? So that's someone who meets that definition that I just mentioned, but they also have to be qualified. And in that qualification, they have to have the skills, experience, education, certification, and training. Oftentimes, one of the misconceptions is I am forced to, or I have to, or I may be in a position where I need to hire someone who ultimately can't do the job. And hopefully, through talking through these things today, talking about some of the internship and job placement programs and opportunities that are available out there, we're hoping to team you up with folks that very well are persons with disabilities, but they are qualified for the jobs that they're applying for and the jobs that MRC and MCB can link you up with. So again, that's the goal here today, is to try to better educate you folks on those opportunities, on the two agencies that can assist you with those opportunities. We do finish here with our contact page, so if you need to reach out to us, feel free to come to me, come to Moss at the end of the training. We'd be happy to help you out on that. But right now, I'm going to turn it over to our first speaker, Mr. Bill Allen. He is the Director of Statewide Job Placement Services. He is a resource. He is a titan in the state, and he's an excellent resource. And I'm going to turn it over to him to really go into some of the opportunities that he can help you out with.
I'm going to read the mission to you. It encapsulates every day that I get up, every day that an area director wakes up, every day that a counselor, supervisor, clerical staff, commissioner, assistant commissioner, every staff person that comes to work, job placement specialist, employment service specialist, we endear ourselves to this mission. The Massachusetts Rehabilitation Commission promotes equality, empowerment, and independence of individuals with disabilities. These goals are achieved through enhancing and encouraging personal choice and the right to succeed or fail in the pursuit of independence and employment in the community. The MRC provides comprehensive services to people with disabilities that maximize their quality of life and their economic self-sufficiency in the community. That's a long mission statement, and it's a hefty order to follow through on. But I believe the Commission does a reasonably good job at doing this with the support of everyone in this room, with the support of community members, and with our combined talent that we have at the MRC and MCB. My colleagues are here. He's out dressing me today, which I can't wait to see Joe up here. But together as a team in the state of Massachusetts, it is a winning combination. And I look forward to working with agencies within Massachusetts to hire and promote more individuals that are qualified. So we have three divisions at MRC. Vocational Rehabilitation, which I'll talk about at length. Community Living and Disability Determination Services. Community Living is really an incredible program to allow individuals to live independently and to assist individuals with most significant disabilities to gain access to the community and to live independently. While looking for employment, they are basically given an opportunity to live their lives unlike before. Our previous commissioner talks about community living extensively because he grew up in a situation where he was in a nursing home and had institutionalized living quarters. This division really breaks down that barrier. I don't know the details of community living like others do, but it is a really substantial part of the commission, and it is really a leading entity in the Commonwealth to let individuals get freedom through work, but to stabilize their living situation is what this division does. Disability Determination Services is a Social Security that Evan talked about a little bit in terms of receiving disability benefits, in terms of payment, in making sure that individuals that have a disability have opportunity to receive benefits from the federal government, and it is really administered through Social Security Administration, but every state has an agency like Disability Determination Services. In Massachusetts, it's given to the MRC. So what is vocational rehabilitation? From my perspective, it's an opportunity to educate employers to the skill set that are needed to get the job done. Vocational rehabilitation, we actually assist individuals so that they can figure out what skill set do they have, what interests do they have that relate to employment. So our goal at VR, Vocational Rehabilitation, is all about the job, employment, career path, opportunity to grow and flourish within either public or private sector. Today, our focus is talking about the public sector. We match an individual, my team in particular, matches skills set to the appropriate job or fund training to update skills necessary for employment. We do not do this. The job placement team does not do this without the direction of the area directors, supervisors, and counselors that are trained and steeped in disability knowledge and understanding what that individual brings to bear within the workplace. So we're guided way before we get into a job placement scenario by the counselors that really know that individual. So when you come to us as employers, you're getting probably the best deal in the Commonwealth, because these individuals know what they've done to achieve to move forward with employment. We've done assessments, we've done interest inventories, and more importantly, the consumer or individual seeking employment is really the powerhouse of driving that force. They are the driving force by which they go to work. From that point, we work closely with employers to understand employment needs and expectations. That's my definition of vocational rehabilitation. It is a generic definition because we want to be integrated into the world of work wherever we can have that opportunity to do so. So we take information from the marketplace, and we take information from our counselors, and we braid them together so that the individual that comes through our doors has an opportunity to really understand where their efforts can be put to work and be individual contributors. So what do we have for employer services? Evan, you're going to watch my time, right?
I am. We're going to let you give you the 5-minute order.
So what do we do with employers? So I'm going to be talking broadly about private sector employers as well as our agenda here today to identify how the Commonwealth can move forward. So my team, the job placement team made of job placement specialists and employment service specialists, provide diverse candidates to employers. We pre-screen applicants after they've gone through the rehabilitation process, for lack of a better term. They come to us pre-screened, we pre-screen them, we allow them to experience an internship. We broker that with employers and with the Commonwealth. You're going to hear from MCB later about their incredible, rich internship program, one that MRC wishes they could, replicate. We have a resume job matching database. So what we do is we take the skill set of the individual and we take marketplace information from the employer and we match them up so that it's a good fit for the individual based on their interests, skills, and abilities, and they are able to transition from the rehabilitation process into the competitive employment world. One of our hallmark events is the hiring event. you'll probably hear more about that as we move forward through the year. There's an opportunity. I'm very proud to announce that the Commonwealth takes a really big leadership in coming to that event. I see colleagues Tom and Juanita here today from different agencies that come together to really hire skilled individuals. And that hiring event is really not a job fair, but an event that really looks at interviewing individuals that day or moving them forward. We need to improve upon that within the Commonwealth, and I think we've made great strides due to the leadership of the individuals that I see here today. We have customized job-driven training programs. I always share this with you, the JDT, customized job-driven training programs. I always share with our groups when we talk about this. When President Obama came out with the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act, he had a vision of really having the employers understand who we are by us, individuals working with disabilities, understanding what the employment market is really like. So they really came up with job-driven training. Well, a year before that, Assistant Commissioner Phillips said, we ought to have job-driven training programs. We ought to go to the employers and say, what curriculum do you need us to train for that are out in the markets, the different various market sectors? So our program was born before President Obama came out with WIOA. And I always plug Joan Phillips for that because we have a job-driven training program whereupon individuals are trained to the specifications of every market sector that you can imagine that we have opportunities to serve. They include healthcare, manufacturing, biotechnology, healthcare, and customer service in general. So we take curriculum from employers, and I'll mention that towards the end of my presentation, and we really train to the specifications of that employer. And the individuals are given an opportunity to leverage their skill set, but also outpace someone that's competitively being interviewed from someone who's walking on the street. So our candidates are given an opportunity to really be given an opportunity to really feel the presence of, I can do this job, have the presence of mind to say I'm competing on the same level as someone without a disability due to this job-driven training program. We have OJEs, I'll talk about those in a minute. No cost services, tax incentives is going to apply to the Commonwealth. So our OJEs, without really putting someone on the spot, but I'm going to do that anyway. Juanita Allen here. Do you all know Juanita? If you don't, please stand, Juanita. A round of applause. I told you I was going to call you. I didn't know you were going to be here today. You're going to get me? I put this in red because we would not have, this is our internship program. I liken it to an internship program. It's a paid internship, it's a paid on-the-job evaluation. So we have, this is quotes right out of Juanita's PowerPoint that I stole, so here's the initiative created collaboration with the Office of Diversity and Equal Opportunity, Massachusetts Rehabilitation Commission, got together about, a decade ago. I know we're dating ourselves. Created in 2008 with a total of 30 successful OJE participants to date. A program length varies from 2 to 6 months. It's an opportunity. It really is an opportunity for consumers. And for lack of a better word, I'll use that word because that's what I'm supposed to use, but they're candidates at this point, and they're really readying themselves and preparing themselves for the real world of work. They have that first-hand experience. And Juanita can attest to this, and it's third-party verification, not coming from my mouth, but from hers, that the team behind the scenes vets these candidates to ensure that they meet the minimum expectations of the job. And I think Juanita can attest that they go above and beyond that. Consumers gain additional and improved skills. Employers benefit financially from skilled individuals that don't need training and can hit the ground running. I can't put it any plainer and simpler than that. It's an opportunity to get the real deal. Some of the assignments are preparation in representation at employer job fairs that Juanita does, creating PowerPoint presentations, exposure to various components of diversity and inclusion, diversity reports, affirmative action reports, veterans, persons with disabilities initiatives, critiquing resumes and cover letters, attending webinars, trainings, seminars, and industry-specific conferences, managing computer databases and other administrative duties, writing a self-evaluation at the end of the OJE. That is powerful. That is powerful. Juanita and her team, and Tom's here too, there's a whole cachet of people here that I didn't know you were going to be here. They could do this presentation. You're changing lives, and you're adding value to the Commonwealth structure of work. They're giving back opportunities for someone otherwise who would be passed by. And I can't underscore the value of what Massachusetts agencies can do for skilled individuals. So what happens? Why is it successful? I just mentioned it's real-time experience. The projects are tailored to the candidate's strength, opportunity to network for state jobs, and that is hugely powerful. Successful track record of employment, and it's a two-way street of communication, constructive feedback and dialogue, and collaboration between MRC, employer, and consumer. It really allows us to build an environment where people can learn. And I would suffice to say that we've learned from the individuals that have gone through the OJE. So here are some of the results that have occurred under the OJE, and direct placements, I might add. So we've had review examiners, Department of Unemployment Assistance. We've had a disability advocate hired as Office on Disability. I changed the word of to on. I didn't hit this slide. Customer Service Security at the Convention Center Authority. Business Analyst, Massachusetts Rehabilitation Commission. DCAM, Human Resources. Now Parole Board. Nurse, Department of Elder Affairs. I am so happy to announce to you today that upon my R&D research, 49 successful employment outcomes over a 5-year period were done with the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, surpassing the wage of our average wage of, I think, $14.87. The average wage for someone going to work for the Commonwealth through the efforts of the OJE program and our direct hire program is $18.42. That is an incredible feat. So you're surpassing, I think, the national average. I have to get back to you on that, but I think the national average is like 17 and change. Massachusetts, round of applause for Massachusetts for doing Tom, why don't you point at you? So
Tom, we share that.
You share that. So I'm going to lean on Tom now. So there it is. I had to, I'm going to put it up on the screen. That's incredible. So, and not just entry-level positions. These are positions that are beyond economic self-sufficiency. These are career growth positions. So Tom, thank you so much for your help with these guys. So what do we mean by customized job-driven training programs? We meet with employers to identify employment needs. We get curriculum, we get job descriptions, we break them together, and we develop the curriculum on behalf of the employer. In this case, it would be a Massachusetts state agency. We develop a job-driven training plan utilizing that information, and we look at positions, and we train to those positions. So the job description, the cultural fit, and the curriculum is based on that information, and then we move forward into a training program. We either train ourselves, or we hire dedicated trainers, or we train with the employer. We identify qualified and motivated MRC consumers that are seeking a career path within specific market sectors. I mentioned the resume database. This is a database that is competitive. It's a marketplace database. Small employers use resume because of the Commonwealth and limitations that we have on funding, this database is really similar to Burning Glass. Am I saying that right? Burning Glass is a database that Salesforce uses, these huge databases to do high-end job matching for positions within the business world. This does the same thing, but at a very lower scale. So we take skill set resumes of individuals and we match them with the 20,000 jobs that we get directly from employers. So I'll say that again, employers in the Commonwealth are sending us their direct job leads and asking us to fill them competitively with other job matching components that are out there in the regular competitive marketplace. So our team of JPS and ESS work to prepare consumers, again, candidates for employment with a thorough vetting process to include mock interviews and pre-training modules. So why would you benefit as a Commonwealth agency? I guess that would be an open-ended question, but I'll answer. You're going to work with pre-screened candidates. It isn't someone that just walks in off the street and applies for a job on mass hires or mass careers. You're going to know who you're interviewing. You're going to be able to observe, assess, and evaluate potential employees before hiring them. You're going to get a ton of information that you normally would not get from hiring someone that would be other than less than qualified. You'd be able to assign projects to free up your time, to identify what projects am I dealing with, and not that you have a lot of projects in the state agency, right? You have lots of time to do all these projects. This offers a solution for you to use some of the skill set to help you advance your mission within your respective agencies. It's consumer driven, so that individual is slated to identify where that skill set is going to add value to your agency or your organization. It assists consumers to improve current credentials for employment. And we create ambassadors to promote the organization. And MRC can help conflict resolution within different state agencies that really don't maybe understand how to work with someone with a disability. Juanita, I have to say, Juanita Allen, I'm telling you, she should have did the presentation. She's been a champion with us on so many levels, as Tom has done. So as far as really formal internships, she's been really facilitating this internship program with us, breaking down barriers. Am I doing all right, Juanita? You gonna double get me now, or yeah? So let's look at the altruistic reason why you would do that. The business imperative is already in place. We know it's slam dunk. I listed all the jobs that you guys have been hiring for, that state agencies have been hiring for. But look what you're doing for our candidates. Think about someone not in the world of work, and they come through your doors, they come through MRC, and they have this incredible opportunity to work in government, to bridge a gap in their work history, to get a professional reference from someone like an agency that is duly recognized by the Commonwealth. You get to network with people and make meaningful contacts. You have the opportunity to showcase a broader set of skill set where no other opportunity would be allowed in the competitive marketplace without having to go a long time to demonstrate your skill set. You expand your interpersonal skills. You encourage learning through various projects. The employer provides meaningful projects. I can let Juanita speak to that. Consumers are encouraged to do their own job search and apply to positions during the OJT. And it basically provides a very powerful reference for the individual. So what do you get before you get our consumers or candidates for employment? You get our evidence-based practices program. Candidate preparation with soft skills workshop. So one of the major challenges for industry is critical thinking skills, you hear it all the time. Soft skills, customer service skills, how do you interact with individuals so that they become ready for work and be meaningful within the workplace? How do you interact with others? All those critical components. That's what this particular skills workshop does, and we do that behind the scenes. Job preparation activities include resume and cover letters, behavioral, motivational, and mock interviews, and we prepare people to disclose or not to disclose, and how to disclose their disability as it relates to work. We also provide consultation for the ADA. We provide diversity and sensitivity awareness training. We have employee assistance, worksite modification. We work with the MRC. We work with MCB. You get us long term. You get us beyond the 90 days of closure. You get us beyond a year. You get us beyond, you go 10 years. You go 20 years if one needs still working. Time is working. We are embedded into the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and it's a phone call away. I can't tell you how many times that we would get a phone call from a state agency, and our job placement specialists are right there on the spot to help intervene to ensure that the individual is meeting the expectations of that job. And it adds value to your organization as well. So I want to step away from public entity. So how are we judged? Really? I can stand here all day and tell you how great MRC is. How you can sit here and say how great your state agency is. But when you get third-party verification, unsolicited, then you know you're on the right track. So I wanted to just do a comparative comment, if I may. This is unsolicited from CBS. CBS came to us, and if Rick was in the room, I'd say, Rick LaFerry from CBS. You just got promoted by him. I think we helped him get promoted. You think so? Yeah. So Rick is now the National Director for Workforce Development at CBS, Massachusetts. Because of this, I think this program had a lot to do with it. He came to us, we came to him. They gave us a curriculum for a pharmacy technician. How many people know what a pharmacy technician is, right? CVS, Walgreens. It's a tough job. That job was paying $11 an hour. That's disgraceful, because these individuals are in the healthcare system. I'm happy to tell you that they've been promoted now. Their wages have been increased to $14 an hour minimum and up from there. CBS gave us their proprietary curriculum because it's a highly competitive field, as you probably can guess. And we train well over 150 pharmacy technicians today across the Commonwealth. And some have gone on to hospitals to make $20, $30, $40 an hour as a pharmacy technician in the hospital, because that's what you can make. And I often tell Rick that. They can start their career here, they can go on and make a really sizable amount of money as a pharmacy technician. So what happened was, CBS decided to really give us an opportunity to really embed ourselves with this curriculum. So these are we're in search of great talent. It's critical to our business that we reflect the communities and patients we serve, and we believe our team provides CBS Health with a competitive advantage in seeking that talent. We help break the cycle of poverty for people who may otherwise continue down the road of dependency, which often spans generations. This was presented at a national conference at USBLN and a few other conferences. These are the words of Rick LaFerry. Why does he say that? Because look what happened to CBS. MRC consumers who are hired through the customized farm tech training program doubled their retention rate. Average cost of turnover is $2,900 per pharmacy technician. So if you hired 60 farm techs hired through this program at the time that this was done, total cost savings to the company was $60,000. They got a tax credit of over $75,000. Cost to CBS cycles, 4 cycles of training, back in when he did this study, it was less than $1,000. So the business imperative speaks loud and clear. Even better than that is that if you look at that white space in the middle, the national first bar graph that you see there, it's a 52% retention rate. Total national CVS. CVS has a 52% rate of retention. If you go to the last bar, that's Mass Rehab clients, 81%. I wonder why I read that high. Got promoted. Our consumers are staying in jobs longer, making more money. Commonwealth is proving that by 1842. The average for us is 1565. So we have a grand opportunity here to really elevate the skill set and capture them within this opportunity. So I want to share our internal challenges, because we have them. And I was pretty honest the last time that I met with Evan and the team of people that came from the representation of the staff meeting.
Round table. Yep.
The round table. So we worked with MGH now for probably 4 years. The first 2 years. How many placements do you think we got the first year with MGH? 0. How did you know? You know. How many placements do you think we got the second year work with MGH? 0. So, you saw the title of my name, Director of Job Placement Services. After 2 years of 0 in having a dedicated job placement specialist, and by the way, half-time employment service specialist, sitting at MGH with 0 outcomes, when I can go to Juanita and Tom and get placements like that, what do you think they're thinking of me? So maybe it's time for you to So, with the wisdom of Joan Phillips, what do you need to do to make this program work? We need to understand your business. We need to understand the hiring manager. We need to understand the department manager. You need to understand the everyday tasks of those jobs. Where we fell is not understanding where MGH expectation was, and that was a real challenge. So we went back, and we thought we'd hit the ground running with food service, janitorial positions, administrative positions, and what we learned was 20 successful employment outcomes later within a year and a half, was that they were hiring at the highest levels. Most of our placements, business analysts, lab research analysts, we were hitting the high end of placements because we listened to what they were asking for. And let me tell you, you don't get hired at MGH because it's the altruistic thing to do. You either can do the job or you can't do it. 20 placements later, and I think there's 8 more in the pipeline. And we also hit the entry-level position for some individuals because that's their skill set. Every job deserves, respect and dignity. But I'm happy to tell you that the highest paid individual at MGH right now is making $85,000 a year. So let me profile this individual. 14 years with Mass Rehab. 14 years. Developed a placement strategy for this individual that was not going to work. I worked with this individual and I stepped aside. Anyway, making $85,000. Business analyst, was with Mass Rehab for 14 years. We did several placements with this individual. But when you listen to the employer, and we set up an interview with this individual, it was an OJE too. Sorry, we did this on our own money. It was incredibly successful. And that broke the code. And what I'm saying is the feedback that we got from MGH is that we need to understand the business imperative. So when you don't understand that business imperative, you're not going to move people forward that are counting on you to crack the code for an organization like MGH or the Commonwealth of Massachusetts or CBS or any other organization. So our commitment is to really listen state agencies on what they want and how do we prepare those individuals. That's my contact information. That's my thank you slide. I don't think we have time for questions.
No, we do. We have 5 minutes.
Yeah, 5 minutes.
5 minutes of
Questions?
needed.
Juanita, you have a question or you have a comment? Tom?
I was just going to say that those staff does a great job at vetting the candidates appropriately, so you know the kind of candidate you're getting, the skills that they're coming with, and they also help with the resume. So you're getting like a really good resume in front of you, so you can actually make a determination where the best placement can be. So that's helpful for your staff. So that's always been helpful for me.
Yeah, Margie Ames and Greg. Margie Gillett and Greg Ames work very good.
Bill, I have a question. Let's say I'm a hiring manager, HR personnel, recruiter. I have a particular job that I'm looking for right now. I know I can reach out and ask you about that, and that may be helpful for you. But I think what I'm taking away from you is you want to build some sort of relationship like you have with MGH, CVS, with some of these larger or smaller agencies to get an understanding. Let's say I don't have jobs available right now, but I have jobs available in the future. Am I reaching out to your team right now and giving them a heads up? What can I be doing now to give you a better understanding of what I'm looking for, even if I don't have jobs right now?
That's a really good approach. So you put it in the mind's eye of like, look, we're not hiring right now, and I know Juanita and Tom deal with this every day when it comes to the hiring manager. We're not making offers that day. We get that, but we make it as real as possible. So that's great labor market information. You know, Bill, when we hire our JPS team, ESS team, when we hire, here's what we're looking for. So having a roundtable discussion about the job, about the expectations, about the bureaucracy that they may have to get around. And we try doing OJEs with many other state agencies, and we got clobbered on that. And that was early on, right? That was, and I'll take the hit on that. That's not, I don't want, that was my fault. We went in and did a nosedive, and if we can do it here, we can do it anywhere. And that song didn't get sung. So what we can do is really understand the expectations early on in getting that information up front as labor market information. When we do hire, here's what we look for. It's gold. That would be really helpful. So I think to your point, let's talk, let's meet, let's have roundtable discussions.
As an employer, one of the things that from your side of the house is that you want to, as an employer, you want to have one source of contact, and especially for the employment specialist on your side, so that as an employer, I know whenever I have a need, I need to be in contact with you. So that's another avenue that Tom and I were able to say that all of your specialists, because you have specialists all over the world, we identified like 1 or 2 people within your organization and made those our contact people. So everybody had to come through those 2 or 3 contact people that we had, so we weren't getting things from all over. It was better for us to be able to manage if it was coming from 3 people within your organization.
So we have I didn't mention our account management system. So what we experienced, we learned that Juanita would call, Bill, I got 20 people calling. Okay, so let's have an account. Let's run people through so that they understand what Tom and Juanita are doing. It's the same thing with CBS. We have account managers for all of our major accounts. I think that adds value to that as well. I think that's a really relevant point of that.
And then as the agency, I get to know the placement person, they get to know me, and then we have a better relationship in saying, well, we can talk about the candidate a little bit more in detail as opposed to we getting people from all over, and I only hear from you once every 3-4 months or something. I don't have a constant relationship with you.
Right. And I might just to add, we're working with Juanita and Tom. I've asked them to sit on a committee for the hiring event, so that, because we owe her, how many people know about we owe her? So at some point, you're going to be exposed to WIOA through knowing us. It's the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act. It's a requirement for several state agencies to co-collaborate, including workforce, including obviously our sister agency, MCB, including education, thank you, Dennis. If they fail, we fail. So it's all for one and one for all. So if we have an opportunity to work, to go collaborate together, this is incredible. 15% of our budget has to be dedicated to youth. And we're going to get together to identify where those entry-level jobs are for students with disabilities that are not going to go on to secondary education or college, that we have a huge opportunity here to facilitate a pathway within the Commonwealth for some of the jobs that Juanita would tell us about at our statewide meetings. So I'm mindful of that workshop that you did talking about. You don't have to have a degree to come to work for the Commonwealth. And so there's a huge opportunity in pipeline for youth in opportunity. So I'll leave you with that. So that's coming soon.
Joe Buizon and Carol Cullins, they are from the Mass Commission for the Blind, and they are going to do a very similar approach to what Bill did to sort of generally talk about the programs that they have, the points of contact that they'll be able to give you, and some of the successes that they had throughout the relationship. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to start with Joe here. Here you are, Joe. Yes, no problem.
Hello, folks. So I woke up this morning. It was pretty cold, right? You guys are probably cold right now. My son goes up to me. He's currently 6 years old. Daddy, you look like you're going to the prom. I'm like, you know what a prom is? I'm like, no, I have a presentation, Luca. He's like, oh, okay, prom seems more fun than a presentation. But Dad, you'll do great. So, good afternoon, everyone. So as Evan had mentioned, my name is Joe Buizon. I'm here with my colleague, Carol Cullins from the Mass Commission for the Blind. Throughout this presentation, I'm going to say lovingly this acronym of MCB. So if you hear me say MCB, I'm referring to the Mass Commission for the Blind. So the vision of the Commission for the Blind, our mission statement. Before I even do that, let me thank, I would be remiss, I want to acknowledge Evan, MOD, our good friends, Bill Allen from MRC, and of course all of you for being here today. We were really excited to have this opportunity and gain some momentum with cross-collaboration with individuals like yourself. So our vision, our mission statement, essentially is the Mass Commission for the Blind really provides the highest level of rehabilitation and social services to individuals who are legally blind and visually impaired, leading to independence and full contribution to one's community. And I'm an example of that, but there are many other examples, so I've benefited to my current employer. The kind of rich history of the Commission for the Blind, which you'll see, is we were started way back when in 1906. It's pretty impressive, to tell you the truth, in the sense that it started with one of the commissioners you'll see on the PowerPoint, Helen Keller herself, with 4 individuals. They started it, had a vision, and they were able to establish what the agency is today. It kind of evolved and ebbed and flows. In 1966, we end up being what we are today, one of the 15 state agencies in the Executive Office in Health and Human Services. The Mass Commission for the Blind, it's unbelievable, honestly. I'm very proud to say we are the kind of oldest and the most richest history. We are the first Commission for the Blind that has been established in the country. In the country. Pretty impressive. We work very closely with MRC, with the hiring event, and many things like that. But it's really nice to see in this wonderful state of the Commonwealth kind of the specialized services that we offer from MRC, MCB, DYS, and all of the services that you, I'm sure, know all about. A little kind of overview about MCB as a whole, a framework, if you will. So we serve individuals from birth to eventual passing, kind of the circle of life, Lion King, one of my favorite Disney movies. And we have children's services, where individuals, kind of that sweet spot, the budding professionals. We have social workers that attend IEP meetings, work with education. I heard someone talk about WIOA and how education is a stakeholder in that process. So those are the children's workers. The other spectrum, where I first started my career at the Commission for the Blind, we have SR, social rehabilitation, working with the geriatric population, equally as important, trying to maintain their independence at home, whether they go into an assisted living or a nursing home. We deploy social workers, our suite of services, to go out there, whether it be orientation mobility, we'll talk about in a moment, assistive technology, kind of tactile techniques to utilize their microwave for meals on wheels, or if they're cooking still independently on their own. So SR is quite important as in addition to children's services. And then our specialized unit is called the Deaf Blind Extended Supports. You heard me reference Helen Keller from the beginning. This is kind of that population, that diverse population that may be very vulnerable. And we serve these individuals that have dual or tri kind of diversities and disabilities. DCAM, Mitch Sanborn, our director in that unit, does many, many great things. We also provide interpreting services, things of that nature in the deaf-blind extended supports. And then kind of the unit that I'm in, vocational rehabilitation, kind of Bill's expertise as well as ours and MOD's heavily involved. We really work with individuals that are looking to get employment, whether it be internship, mentoring, volunteering, you name it. Carol will be talking about that momentarily. That's vocational rehab services. So those are the specific departments that we have. And then as you see, we'll have the departments from rehabilitation teaching. That was my first job at MCB. Just celebrated 12 years at the Commission, which I've held different positions. And the rehab teachers really serve all units. They're on the ground and come out there and do touch typing. They'll go out there and maybe an individual lost their sight later in life when they were an adolescent, perhaps like myself when I was 17, and go out and go, okay, how are they going to match their suit? Decided to wear a blue suit today. Someone said I look like Bruno Mars over there. I don't know where the hell picked this damn suit. So that's what that rehab teacher does, in addition to other things. Using their stove, their daily living, the washing machine, things that you may or may not take granted of, and just opening your mind of creativity. The rehab teachers do have a degree, and they serve all of those departments that I named. Orientation and mobility, kind of the king, is a big department in our unit. We're also based throughout the Commonwealth, O&M, as well as all the departments from, we have a footprint in New Bedford, Worcester, Springfield, and then our main office is down the street at 600 Washington, across from the Opera House. Then we have the kind of ever-evolving assistive technology department that we deploy all types of technology. Well, I'll show you momentarily, from closed-circuit televisions, Zoom text, which is a magnifying software, JAWS, which is not the movie, right? But JAWS is speech access, job access with speech. So job access with speech. I use that specifically for myself, as well as I don't have that usable vision to access print standardly. So going to the kind of last and final slide for myself, which I'm going to go more in depth on, is orientation and mobility? How do people that are visually impaired and blind actually go to work? I'm sure you had a lot of questions, because when I was not blind, when I was 16, 15, born and raised in Somerville, Massachusetts, before it was Slummerville and Scummerville. Come on by, you guys can see me, there's a lot of restaurants in there. I would see someone who was blind and I would go, should I help them? Should I not help them? What are the promising practices? How do I help that person? Because I want to be a good citizen, but I don't want to hinder their independence or be rude. So orientation mobility in the cane, the universal symbol of independence, of disability, an old term of handicap. So if you notice, I have a blue cane. It's like my kid's favorite cane. They always want me to use this cane. But the symbol of vision impairment and disability is red and white. I'm going to move in a moment and come right back there. Is your typical cane, which is red, white, red and white. This is the cane you typically see. And the reason why it's red and white, that identifies as someone who's visually impaired. A question that we typically get is why that color? Is when you're driving and things of that sort, your headlights will flash and reflect. Therefore, it helps kind of identify that person for safety. Please keep in mind too, if someone is using their cane and they're bumping and they don't look as graceful, they're learning. That's what it is. It may not look great and you want to rescue them, but know that tapping is what we are training them to do at the Commission for the Blind for the most part. Other types of canes that you may see not as often. Kind of this cane. It's pretty sleek, slim, slender, right? It's not red and white, but it's an identification cane. We don't recommend this. Giving you a little snapshot about orientation and mobility. It's quick. Put it right into my pocket. One would use that more for less orientation and mobility if they're familiar with the building. Okay? Sighted guide is the most important. Some individuals, when they saw me today, you don't necessarily have to do that. Hey Joe, it's Naomi from MOD. Because maybe I don't recognize them or I haven't seen them for a while. Just kind of those nice kind of etiquette things, if you remember, that would help the person who's visually impaired. Remember who it is. If I don't know, I'm like, hey, how are you? If you notice I didn't say your name, it's because I don't know it. I don't do that. You guys do the same exact thing. Okay, so, hey buddy, how are you? Good to see you, miss. How are you, my friend? I can keep going on in terms of kind of graceful things. Seeing eye docs. I don't use one myself, perhaps later in life I will. You have to have the greatest, or not greatest, but you need to have a baseline of orientation and mobility. So if you see someone with a dog, they have gone through screening and things of that sort to get to that point. You know not to pet their working dog, things of that sort. They usually don't get the name because, animals are very loving. If you call the pet, they will go to you, and then it will kind of interrupt the individual's training. Technology, the ever-evolving technology, that's where we come in terms of mobility, we provide those expertise. If you're able to provide an interview or hire somebody, please note that the piece with accommodations, if accommodations are needed, as Bill had mentioned, we are a phone call and email away. This is a long-term working relationship. We have built that rapport, that relationship from the beginning. Know, especially from a state-to-state level, that it's really light lifting whether you do an internship, which Carol will go into, an OJT, or a mentoring day, things of that sort. Technology. I myself use a smartphone. Some of you may have seen this. So I have a speaker behind me. It says 309. The reason why it's so quick, over the years, I'm celebrating my kind of blindness. This coming May, I lost it in 1999. I've learned to increase the speed of me listening. So if I slow this down,
15%.
going into,
NFB messages, 5 unread messages.
I have 5 unread messages.
Double tap to open.
Reading my text. My screen's off because I necessarily don't need it.
Message, text field is editing. Record audio, messaging apps, attached media. Delay the link read. Good luck.
Oh, good luck.
1:30
So
PM.
essentially that's my text. If I speed it up,
Speaking rate. 10, 60, 70%, 85%. Good luck. 1:30 PM.
it said, good luck, who is it for? So now I'll turn my speech off. And then it's off. So know that we can deploy that technology and we can provide that. That's why we have federal and state fundings and our expertise. And Carol will go into in-services that we do on a regular basis. That's a little bit of technology. Other things I did want to show you is some of you may have a pen and paper in front of you. I use this voice note. And essentially it is a note taker. I don't need the screen. It's because I just use my ears and keystroke commands, allowing me to access exactly what you would do, taking notes if you want to write down my contact information, which Carol will put up at the end of our presentation. I am not a Braille reader. However, there's different technologies, iPads, as some of you I'm sure will have at home. And there's your low-level technology where on your iPhone you just take a picture of the business card, and one who's visually impaired will just look at close at it with their vision. So what we wanted to do in the front part of this presentation is to give you the background of the Commission for the Blind, a little of the technology, mobility, the different departments, the history, and then Carol in a moment will tell you about all of the ways you can engage with MRC, with MCB, and how we can do that in a meaningful way that will be light lifting, and then moving forward, we can partner even on a higher level, whether that ultimately means higher success stories, things of that sort. So after Carol comes up, I'll come back up and hopefully we get some kind of inquiries, thoughts, comments regarding the Massachusetts Commission.
The definition of legal blindness, really the best way to think of it is 20/200 vision, 20 over 200. So if you think about 20/20 vision being the ideal level of vision, an individual with 20/20 vision, think about this now, standing 200 feet away from an object, for someone who is on the, oops, let me shut off Joe's speaker back here. For someone who has, someone who is visually impaired on the borderline would have to be 20 feet away to see the same thing that someone sees with 20/20 vision at 200 feet away. Does that make sense? So, and it's also 10% peripheral. Basically, very generally speaking, without going into a lot of detail, it's 1/10 of normal, if you can think of it that way. So a lot of people with vision impairment do have usable vision, a lot of usable vision. Joe's vision is pretty low, but he does have usable vision. So I think it's less than 7% of individuals who are legally blind that are totally blind. All right. So this next slide, we're talking about our collaboration with employers. As Bill mentioned earlier, we do OJEs. He did explain that. We do that a little bit as well. I'm not going to go back into detail because it would be somewhat redundant. We don't do it as often. Our population is much, much smaller, but much more specialized, as you could tell by a lot of the gadgets that Joe had demonstrated. And that's just a touch of what we do. Basically, we have an internship program, and I'm going to talk in greater deal about that, which really is a major focus of ours, where we place close to 100 interns every year throughout the Commonwealth and for-profit and non-profit organizations. And I'm going to go into detail about that shortly. Obviously, we collaborate with employers on general job seeking. We want employers to hire. We want you to hire our qualified candidates. We have a pipeline of qualified candidates, just like Bill said with MRC. Our VR counselors completely vet our job seekers. I'm going to go through this slide somewhat quickly because there are certain areas that I want to focus on a little bit more. We ask employers sometimes to do mock interviews with our job seekers because after a while, we're like their moms and dads. I'm sure you see that, Bill, as well. We can do mock interviews with them, but after a while, the job seekers tune us out. They hear from us. They don't want to hear from us anymore. When they get a job interview, even a mock interview, a practice interview from an employer, they say, oh, okay. That is really what happens during an interview. Oh, they were right when they told me that I didn't have really strong body language or that I was slouching. I guess maybe that's something I actually have to work on. And then we also would love to have FaceTime with employers as much as possible, even if it's not mock interviews, informational interviews. We would love for any of you to, be able to provide informational interviews to our job seekers so that they can get a sense of what to expect to go into the field that each of you is working in. We also do have speaking opportunities for employers. That can be at our internship program. That can be at any of our soft skills trainings, which we do, where we may ask employers and hiring managers to come in and talk to our job seekers, again, to hear from someone other than us. We also like to help employers fill the diversity requirements, so we know that's a challenge, and we can do that in a number of ways, both from hiring, obviously, but also doing in-services. We can provide an in-service. We would be happy to do that for any of you, and in some cases, maybe do it in conjunction with MRC, where we can go in and talk to the hiring managers, talk to a team of hiring managers from a variety of departments, kind of like what we're doing today, but a little bit more detailed about the populations that we serve and about the assistive technology that we provide. Joe only touched on it. It's so much more detailed than this. We often will spend an hour on our presentation, so we would be very happy to come in and talk with any of you about this. We do this all over the state. We actually just did in-service for the FBI. We did in-service for Blue Cross and Blue Shield. We do it statewide. We also, in October, had our 8th annual job fair for individuals with vision impairment. This fair is very good. We also collaborate with MRC on their job fair, their hiring event that they do every year, and we actually took a piece of that we modeled after for our job fair for individuals with vision impairment, in that we now, it's a job fair in our case, because the individuals can go table to table. Not everyone there is getting an interview, but we will take some of the strongest, most job-ready candidates, because we open it for everyone, even if they're not job-ready, to sort of explore. But those who are really job-ready, we encourage them and work with them to apply for actual positions, and we will set up interviews at this job fair every year. And we always get hires. So we actually are getting a lot of follow-up and feedback right now from the job fair that we had just a few weeks ago. So it's a very good event. And it's very specialized because it's only for individuals with vision impairment. So we do a training session in the beginning for the employers who are there to just kind of give them a sense of how to interact with the job seekers when they come in. It's kind of mysterious in some ways. It's a little bit scary and intimidating in some ways because employers don't want to do or say the wrong thing. But we try to take the mystery out of that. And the job seekers as well, we're talking with them as well and encouraging them to have patience. Not automatically assume that if someone says the wrong thing that they're being degrading or discriminatory in any way, shape, or form. So we work with them as well on both ends. And it's usually a very successful event. We also have a great mentoring program where we match up our job seekers and our younger job seekers and some of them are job ready, some of them are not quite job ready yet, with individuals who are legally blind, who are working, who are successfully working. So that's a great program as well, so that they can get a sense of what individuals do day to day. How, what was the process that they went through? Maybe they, had some of the same types of hurdles that some of, these other individuals have dealt with every year. And then we also have our Employment Now program, which is actually a collaboration right now with Mass Eye Infirmary, and we may have another one coming up. Is that definitely it? Cambridge?
Yes.
With Cambridge Health Alliance. And that's like a 6-month internship program, if you will. The individuals who participate actually get a stipend for participating, and they they work in different departments throughout the hospital. And I mean, a hospital is like a mini city if you think about it. They've got food service, they've got janitorial, they've got, radiology and surgical departments. So these individuals get to experience a little bit of everything. And they also get some one-on-one job coaching and, job searching at the same time. The success rate is 95% at this point, so it's a very, very good internship program. I mentioned earlier that we place about 100, approximately, interns throughout the state in both for-profit and non-profit organizations. They all are required to work 120 hours minimum. That's not much. I mean, if you think about it, that's 3 weeks at 40 hours a week. It could be 6 weeks at 20 hours a week, or depending on the need of whatever department or organization that brings them on. They could work 5 hours one week, they could work 40 hours the next, 20 the next, so long as they work 120 hours over the duration. The beauty of it is we provide them with a stipend. So employers aren't being asked to pay for this internship. However, if there is already a formal internship program in place with that organization, then and this intern falls right within that internship program, then they would still pay them like they would anyone else, of course. We still provide the stipend and we provide a stipend of $1,000, and we do that because employers, our interns, many of them haven't had that opportunity to have that first job, that first work experience. It's very challenging, and a lot of times people view them as incapable. Sometimes family members, their hearts are in the right place, but they're sheltering them, they're protecting them, saying, you can't work, you can't do this, you can't do that. So we're trying to say, oh yes, absolutely you can live and work independently just like everybody else. You're just going to do things a little bit differently, such as the technology, such as orientation, mobility. They may have those kinds of needs, which we will provide as an agency to anyone, any organization that brings on an intern, or an employee, of course. We will come in, we will have our technicians come in, install the software if they need JAWS, the screen reading software, or if they need Zoom text, which is the magnification software. A lot of job seekers use that, which just really, as the word implies, it just magnifies everything. If they need orientation and mobility. And everyone's different. Sometimes an individual could walk around here, you wouldn't even know that they're blind until maybe they're reading a piece of paper, and you may see them, holding the paper really close, and their heads going side to side because maybe they only have central vision. So, that's how they see. So an individual like that may not need orientation and mobility. They may not need screen reading software. They may not need magnification. They may simply need to magnify on their own, like we can do with our smartphones and many of our desktop computers as it is, and our laptops. So this applies for both job seekers and interns. All of our interns attend soft skills training. That's a requirement, even if they've done it before. And that's where we like to bring in sometimes employers to talk with them, not just us, because they get tired of hearing from us after a while. So not only are we presenting qualified interns to you, but remember they're interns, so they're still learning just like any other intern. But we're also providing interns who have gone through soft skills training. All interns attend an opening ceremony, which is usually held right here in this building, and then a closing ceremony, which is held at the State House, and usually, and always, the supervisors are invited to that event. This past year, actually, the one of our Boston City councilors hosted an intern for the first time. She was so excited about it. She had photos about it on her Facebook page. So we're always looking for new host sites. And then there's paperwork, and if anyone decides to host an intern, we can certainly talk about that. So the job seekers that we present to you will be completely vetted. So if we're presenting someone to you, you know that they've got the skills. Unless we're all human, unless there's something that we miss, they should have all of those minimum qualifications that you'd be looking for. We also will present any assistance and support that you need. We're not going to just say, oh, here you go, and we're done. I'm going to give you an example. We had one employer that, we've had many, but one in particular actually hired someone for food service, doing food prep. Completely blind, 100% blind. And he was hired to cut chicken, make sandwiches, and the employer trusted us. But he didn't trickle down the information to his staff. So they were pulling the knife away from him. They were saying, oh no, you can't cut, you can't use the knives. So we came in after the fact. We had come in to do other trainings, orientational ability, rehab teaching, and things like that in advance. But we came back in again, and this time we talked to the staff so that they were all put at ease. And they loved him, and he did great. So basically what we tell employers is, please, focus on the skills. Let us handle the specialized vision situations. And then on to the job training, real briefly. It's kind of like an audition. That's something else. If an individual seems to have all the skills, there's a job at the end. Take them on, we'll pay. Take them on, it's based on a handshake, so if things don't work out for some reason, there's no contract signed, but there should be a job. The idea is there is a job at the end. Once we put in all the technology, the sort of vision-related training that might be necessary, then you're gonna have a great employee. If it doesn't work, well, that job seeker got a really good experience. It may not have been the most pleasant, who knows? But it's still experience on the resume. It tells us maybe we need to work on something else with them, or the individual needs to do something else. More often than not, it's a win-win all the way around. I actually haven't seen any job myself, any OJT not work out to this point. Last slide. So this is just a sample of some of the partners that we've worked with. Verk Enterprises, for example, they hired an intern as a greeter. She was someone who has minimal skills, came to this country on a medical visa, multiple surgeries, after falling face first into a fire, lost her vision, lost some of her fingers, her face is deformed. Beautiful, beautiful person. Once you talk with her, you don't even see all that. But minimal skills, and she was so nervous. They took her on as a greeter for an internship. We brought in a job coach to help her kind of just navigate the workplace in general. After her internship ended, customers kept asking about her. So they called me up and said, can we please hire her? I said, yeah, absolutely. And Verk calls on us often to hire people to work in their different, Verk Enterprises is a convenience store establishment. So we have a lot of people doing stocking shelves and such. But I have to say our internship population, same as with Bill's, less than a high school diploma through PhDs. So it's across the board. We've placed people at Tufts Health Plan, at Metro West Regional Transit Authority, so people in really high-level positions and people in very entry-level positions. Thank you.
It's up here for questions. And I know we have the contact. Thank you so much, Carol. Thank you so much, Joe. We have the contact information here for both of these individuals as well. I'm going to have them just answer maybe one or two questions, and then I know that everyone is going to stay afterwards to answer more questions if you have them. So let me turn it back to the MCB group.
I just want to give Joe a shout out. I happened to talk to Tufts yesterday, and we were talking about incredible work individuals who work in things like
your testimony to the work that's happening in the private sector. So they're really happy.
So Joey,
Yes.
do you have just one location, or do you have regional or region-based locations?
That is correct.
Yes.
Excellent. Thanks for your inquiry. So essentially, our main offices are again down the street in Boston, right there in 600 Washington Street. We share offices with MRC as well as the Deaf Commission for the Deaf and Hard of Hearing. But then we have the satellite offices that Dennis was referring to for Springfield, New Bedford, and Worcester. Where probably the size of our agency as a whole is 120 staff in total. Any other questions? I had the pleasure of meeting Rebecca and Felicia back there. Any questions from them? Or anyone in the crowd? Love to take one or two more. If not, as Evan had mentioned, we'll be sticking around to ask any questions moving forward.
Another question, what's the population of persons who are visually impaired?
Another excellent inquiry. We have a central reg here. Some other states don't have a central reg, so we pride ourselves in that. So we're about, right now, as that continues to fluctuate, I believe the number is about 40,000 individuals who are visually impaired and legally blind, off the top of my head.
It is Massachusetts state law that when an individual is diagnosed as legally blind, that their diagnosing eye care provider registers them with us, then we have a social worker reach out to them and kind of talk about the services that would be better.
Yes, my name's Rita from Mass DOT. So does that, are all 40,000 automatically consumers of MCB or?
Outstanding inquiry, because I believe where you're going at the follow-up question that comes right to my head is, out of that critical mass, how many actual individuals are looking for employment in this case? So a lot of them are in the SR side, social rehab, looking for quality of life, quality of living, and then we have job seekers that are intermixed there. But right now, that number, a good amount of them are the more mature population.
Okay, folks, give a round of applause.